I'm Joanna Small, your public information officer for the Wheat Ridge Police Department. It's Friday, February 3rd, and this is your WRPD Video Week in Review. Here's a summary of some of the most notable incidents your Wheat Ridge patrol officers responded to over this past week or so, as well as a look back at some of the cases our detectives could use your help in resolving. Now, we do this week in review not to advertise crime, but because we want you to know how your police officers are fighting hard to keep you safe. Overall, our community is safe, but we are still a very busy department. On February 1st, officers were in the Behavioral Health Unit of Lutheran Medical Center with a person in custody when a man exited a different unrelated room, charging and striking an officer without provocation. Officers safely took the man into custody. When his hospital stay is complete, the suspect will be transported to jail on second-degree assault against a peace officer charges. Also, on February 1st, officers were dispatched to the 4700 block of Kipling for a vehicle versus pedestrian collision in which the driver did remain on the scene. The driver was making a left-hand turn and failed to yield to the pedestrian in the crosswalk, striking him with the front bumper of the vehicle. The victim suffered serious, but fortunately not life-threatening injuries, and the driver was cited. On January 31st, officers were taking a woman into custody in front of a business in the 5000 block of Kipling when a passerby in a white van crashed into the driver's side of one of our patrol vehicles, causing some significant damage. The man will be cited for careless driving as a result of that crash. On January 30th, officers were dispatched to the King Soopers on West 38th Avenue for reports that a man was physically fighting with a security guard and that the security guard had pepper sprayed him. The guard told our officers the suspect had become verbal as well as physical with store employees, and when the suspect allegedly pushed the guard then deployed his pepper spray. The guard then escorted the suspect out of the store, took him to the ground, and contained him until our officers arrived. Witnesses corroborated this account. The suspect is now facing disorderly conduct and harassment charges. Also on January 30th, our officers responded to a welfare check at Walgreens on Wadsworth and discovered a man passed out behind the wheel of a truck that was left running. Officers also spotted a piece of tinfoil with burn marks and part of a blue pill consistent with fentanyl sitting in plain view on the center console. The driver had more foil and a glass pipe in his lap, and the vehicle doors were unlocked. He's now facing charges for driving under the influence of drugs, unlawful possession of a controlled substance, possession of drug paraphernalia, and driving under restraint. He was also found to have an unrelated warrant for his arrest. On January 29th, a gas station convenience store in the 3400 block of Clear Creek Drive was robbed. 4 suspects wearing masks, possibly juveniles, entered the store and one pointed a gun at the clerk while the 3 others stole cigarettes. They fled in a gray sedan with out-of-state plates and appears to be an unknown model Acura with a personalized plate. We immediately put out a BOLO, be on the lookout for, to surrounding police agencies. We are still looking for the vehicle and the people, believed to all be male, who terrorized the employee. Once we have that surveillance video in our possession to share, we will post it on our social media. Very early in the morning on January 30th, officers responded to a car crash on 44th and Kipling and quickly learned the driver was intoxicated or on drugs. His vehicle had crashed into a street sign on the east side of the intersection of West 44th and Kipling. Our first officer to arrive saw an open beer bottle in the car and found the driver passed out, still behind the wheel. After arresting the driver for suspicion of DUI, officers also located a marijuana pipe with fresh residue on the driver's side of the vehicle. The driver was transported to the hospital for a blood draw. The previous shift on January 29th also arrested a DUI driver in the 10,000 block of West 44th Avenue. This driver was also contacted, passed out in the driver's seat of his vehicle. Once we learned his identity, officers determined this was the man's 4th DUI arrest. He was transported to the hospital first for treatment. Overnight, January 28th, officers were called to a bizarre scene in the 3700 block of Kipling. A man called 911 when he said he had been the victim of a road rage incident, but the result was that he fired his own gun and shot through his own front windshield. He told responding officers another vehicle was brake checking him, which caused him to rear-end that vehicle. The man then says the driver of the vehicle he struck pulled out a gun and menaced him, so he pulled out his own handgun and fired a shot through his windshield towards the other vehicle. It is unknown where the round went, and there were no reports of gunshot wound victims at any surrounding hospitals. Officers were not able to locate any witnesses or the supposed suspect vehicle. The man's firearm was seized while detectives continued to investigate this incident. Also on January 28th, officers responded to a second-degree assault in which a man cut his stepson's arm from the wrist to the elbow, then fled the area. During an argument, he had allegedly retrieved a knife and threatened to stab the adult victim. The victim was transported to the hospital for treatment of the injury, and a safety plan for him was established. Detectives are in the process of locating and arresting the suspect. On January 27th, someone called 911 to report that people inside a gold Jeep appeared to be aiming a long rifle towards Kipling Street. Officers found the Jeep and contacted the 3 teens inside it. They were in possession of a very realistic-looking long rifle with an orange tip. One of the juveniles was issued a summons for disorderly conduct. The pellet gun was confiscated, and our school resource officers were notified as well so they could contact the parents of the involved teens. Now here's a case detectives could really use your eyes on, so please take a look at your screen and this surveillance video. 3 people, all described as Hispanic and about 20 years old, with at least 2 being identified visually as female, wandered around Ulta Beauty taking various items totaling about $1,600 off the shelves. They then bypassed the register and left the store in a hurry, leaving in a black and white colored SUV. If you believe you recognize any or all of these suspects, please call our investigative team at the number that's listed there on your screen. In between your calls for service, officers proactively patrolled areas of our city that are higher in crime, contacting people for trespassing, which often leads to warrant and/or drug arrests. They also issued approximately 44 traffic citations and recovered 2 stolen vehicles. That's all for now. We'll see you next time. And please remember, if you need us, we are always just minutes away.